So we are good to go?
Yes, just give me a minute.
Sure.
Okay. So, a very good evening and a good morning to all of you who are joining us from elsewhere. A very happy Dussehra. For those who are not conversant with Indian festivals, Dussehra is the triumph or good over evil. And so we continue and we go on, even in the times of Corona, with the regular affairs of humankind. And today it gives me immense pleasure, yet again, to bring to you Dr. Manan Desai, who is a biochemist. And what is a biochemist? We'll know more. We've always heard about this term and its intricacies and all these concoctions. I feel, I visualize all these people putting things in a cauldron and making something new. Maybe it's not that, it's just a visual that I have. But coming to talk about Dr. Manan Desai, how I met Manan is very interesting. We became a part of this group and started having a lot of interactions, and I absolutely love chatting with Manan. He's so knowledgeable and he loves the Himalayas just like I do. And so we started talking and he shared a few things with me, the way he documents, and I found that so interesting. And here we have him today to speak to us about plants, people, and places, and so important about this relationship that we have. And Manan has done his PhD from Mumbai University in biochemistry. He spends a lot of time traveling in the Himalayas and documenting stuff. So, without much ado, let's have Dr. Manan Desai for you today with his talk on plants, people, and animals. And I would ask and urge you all to put your mics and videos off to get more bandwidth. And after Manan is done, we'll have a question and answer session wherein you have to kind of raise your hands. There's a tab, and I'll take the questions in order that they're received. And those of you who are joining us for the first time today, I am Dr. Sonali Gupta. I'm an anthropological archaeologist, and I have some announcements to make right after the talk. So we will do that after Dr. Manan Desai ends his lecture. Over to you, Manan.
Thank you, Sonali, for the introduction. Good morning and good evening to all. I am I'm Dr. Manan Desai, and the topic that I'm going to discuss today is based on it's something that we all are familiar with, that we all look that we all come across it, but it's just from a different perspective. So the topic that I'll be talking about is on places, plants, and people, and how plants have affected several communities and cultures. So to begin with, uh, if we are to describe this particular aspect of study, it falls under ethnobotany. Ethnobotany is a very broad field, and it involves, or it revolves rather, around the interactions between plants, people, how they influence various religious aspects or activities, or even culinary or cooking. Now, recently we had one talk in ethnobotany by Amra, who was from Egypt, and he spoke about how juniper seeds were found in Egyptians' tombs, and uh, discussed or spoke or elaborated more about the trading route. Now, when we consider plants, that's the very first thing that comes to our mind, and that is how the trading of spices. So, if we look at uh, that a bit more in detail, what we see is out here on the map that there are two main ways by which plants moved across continents. So, in green, we have the Silk Route, which not only took various goods or textiles, but also spices from one part of the world to the other. And then we are in the red, we have the maritime Silk Route, which was also an important way of transferring various spices and other goods through sea. Now, because of both these routes, certain paths had become very important trading centers, such as if you consider the maritime route Cochin, which even today is considered as the spice capital of our country. Now, while spices are considered as one of the main ways of transporting plants from one part of the world to other, ethnobotany also includes a more detailed biological analysis and study, not just trade and commerce. So, what are the medicinal aspects of these various plants? It also involves use of plants in pottery, in sculptures, murals. They also it discusses about how plants and have found their way in literature. And it another aspect that it involves is the importance of including plants in local folklore, in religion of various places around the world. Now, unlike some of the talks that we've seen previously, which dealt with detailed analysis or scientific analysis of different aspects, uh, the talk that I'm about to deliver is not related, is not entirely scientific in nature. That is, I'm not going to discuss the exact means as to how we analyze the medicinal properties or how we extract plant products or these components from plants, but a blend of the medicinal aspects as well as how different stories were created around these plants as I encountered them and as I heard from the local people. So so amongst all these various aspects, there will be bits and pieces of literature, medicine, as well as folklore, and I believe, if possibly, even religion. Now, when we consider plants, we always look at the good side of the plants. Oh, they are beneficial, or if we consume such and such plant mixture, it will be good for our health. But it's very important to understand that these chemical components that are found in plants and which we consider them to be very beneficial, they also have a dark side. Now, and these ill effects or the dark sides were documented way before. So here is an example of of such documentation from the Aztecs. Now, the plant that they documented was Datura. Now, this is a plant that is found even in India, even in Central America and various other places. Now, this particular plant is, when used in a very specific or a particular manner, it serves as a sedative and also as it helps in relieving pain. But so the local name that was given to this plant, and if my pronunciations are proper, it is pronounced as Tolohuaxiutil. Pardon my pronunciation if it's not accurate. But if you look at the first part of the word, it means to bow down or to doze off, which emphasizes or focuses upon the sedative nature of this particular plant. And the second part refers to the ill effects of this plant. And it's not only this plant in particular, but an entire variety of plants which have similar effects. And here it is like a hallucinogenic effect. Now, so here is a datura flower and the plant that is. Now, this particular plant has several potent chemicals, some of which which are the main, some of which are such as atropine is used to relieve the pain, but at the same time, it also increases the heart rate. Then we have other chemicals which reduce muscle spasms, it induces sweating. At the same time, there are also certain chemicals which cause disorientation, amnesia, sleep, amnesia, hallucinations. So, because of these particular effects, now back then they didn't have a very distinctive method of documenting. So, how they documented was in forms of narratives or in form of poems. So, if we were to look into how the Aztecs documented the ill effects of this particular plant, it goes as shown here. It harms one, takes away one's appetite, maddens one, makes one besotted. He who eats it will no longer desire food until he shall die. If he eats it moderately, he will forever be disturbed, maddened. He will always be possessed and no longer tranquil. And along with it, they had a pictorial representation of the same. Now, because of these particular nature or attributes of this specific plant, that is Datura, there were several stories or or folklores that surrounded them, and it because of this, several hallucinogenics have also been used for occult or shamanic purposes. Now, the purpose of discussing this one Aztec example was to set up a idea of how my entire talk is going to be. Instead of breaking it down into specific or categorizing it into specific scientific analysis, I've taken this particular example as an inspiration for my subsequent slides and the talk, wherein I will try to discuss the scientific aspects, but in a story format or in a way as to how the ancients documented. Now, my main area of focus is related to very specific plants, which I personally encountered during my travel, and some of them some of the effects I've experienced myself. So, the talk will be a first-hand account of those plants that I have encountered, what I've heard from the locals, and how I've documented them. The very first plant is that I'd encountered. This goes way back to 2007 when I made my very first backpacking trip to Uttarakhand, specifically to Mana village, which is a small village between at the Indo-Chine border, and it is the last Indian village at the border. Now, this plant locally it is called Katuki. Now, one thing that it's a small habit of mine, that is whenever I travel, I tend to make my own travel routes and maps as shown here in this slide. Uh, it's a habit that it's a small habit that I have, and it's been on since a long time now. So every time I travel, there is a small notepad with me, and I tend to make a route map. And on that map, I try to note down certain interesting aspects that I observe. Now, here at Mana, when we looked at we came across a local of this or old ladies selling these small roots over there. And we had asked them, what are these? And briefly, I'd mentioned or written, rather scribbled, that it is used to help in relieve stomach acidity, and they mash the plant in water and they consume it. Later, when I did a little bit more of a little bit detailed study of this plant, what I found out that it's a rare herb which is found only in the high Himalayan regions, around 3,000 to 5,000 meters. Now, if you look at the distribution out here, it is found from Pakistan to parts of China, going right up to the northeast, including Burma. And even recently, it has been observed, the plant has been found in parts of Himachal Pradesh, that is Kangra, Mandi, Kinnaur districts, as well as in Sikkim. So here, the two colors are showing. The red color shows where it was, sorry, where it was classically observed, and the blue colors highlight the recent observations of these plants. Now, looking at this map, it is one may ask that why this is a rare plant if it's found in if it's distributed so widely. Now, because of its medicinal properties and its usage since antiquity, like if you observe, this plant was, it has been documented in Ayurvedic texts, it has been used in traditional Tibetan medicines. Now, because of its usage, there has been extensive over harvesting of this plant. As a result, it is now threatened, on the verge of extinction, because of which it is efforts are being made to conserve this plant. Now, the medicinal effects that this plant has is it aids in digestion, it improves immunity, it has aspects that are beneficial to the liver, and often the roots of this plant are used. Now, the thing with when we look into medicinal properties of plants, various aspects of plants are used. Either it's the root, it's the leaf, the flower, and they're prepared in a very specific manner. The reason for preparing it in a very specific manner is depending on the nature of how, depending on the nature as to how it is prepared, certain chemical components can be extracted more effectively. For instance, some compounds that are soluble in water will be more potent in concentration if the concoction is prepared in water, while in some cases they deliberately ferment it. So the alcohol that is produced during fermentation helps extraction of certain other beneficial chemicals. In this case, here they ground the entire roots and they put it in water for overnight and then they consume it. And that is what the locals had told me. Now, this particular spice, it is a very unique herb rather, that because of its altitude, there are certain chemical additions that have been observed in this plant, which are mainly due to the environment in which it is growing. Now, if we consider the classical Ayurvedic concept, herbs that are bitter, they have a very cooling effect, because of which this plant is used to aid in acidity. But because of its unique environment, that is, it's growing in very harsh, high altitude, uh, rocky environment, it has developed certain other chemicals mainly for its own self-protection, and that has added to its medicinal property. So here this herb becomes a unique combination of bitter, as well as it has a unique pungency, a spiciness in its nature, which gives it a diverse medicinal role. The next plant which I came across, and I'm quite sure most of you all who have traveled to Himalayas, may have come across, is the bichu grass or the stinging nettle. Now, I came across this during my trek to Valley of Flowers, which is in Uttarakhand. And there's a very funny and a unique way in which I came across this plant rather. And it was much to my agony and enjoyment to our local guide when he told me about this plant. So during my trek, while we were returning back to our camp, the local guide said, "Ki, sir, since you like plants, you like to take photographs of plants, just take a look at this one particular flower, this leaf. It's very unique, and brush your hand across it." Uh, I I was like, okay, fine, it's just a leaf. What is it going to do? And as I brushed my hand across it, for a couple of moments, I was screaming, shouting, and probably even cussing because the pain that this plant caused. Now, the uniqueness of this leaf is, if you see in this figure out here, it has these small hair-like projections on the surface. They are very much like very sharp needles. So when you brush your hand, imagine about 20, 30 needles poking your skin at the same time. Now, these projections that are there, they release a unique combination or a cocktail of chemicals which give us that stinging sensation, and it causes severe inflammation. And the thing is, the more you scratch, the more burning sensation we get. So after a couple of minutes of agony, and the guy told us that the remedy for this is growing right next to it. Now, the remedy is a very common plant which has broad leaves, and it looks more or less like spinach, and it grows right next to this plant. So he was like, take those broad leaves, crush it and rub it on your hand, and the pain will disappear. And actually within minutes, the pain did disappear. So the point here is, if at all anyone is traveling to these places, just be a little bit careful while rubbing your hands or moving your hands in the wilderness. You might just come across this. Now, apart from its uh, painful aspect, this plant is also used in local culinary. So they boil the plant to the extent that the needles that are there, they are removed, and then they make a vegetable very much like a palak or a spinach vegetable, which they call a bichubuti sag. The flavor is also quite close to spinach. In several places, especially in Europe, they also dry these leaves and they use it to make tea and also soup. In Uttarakhand, specifically in Chamoli district, the local handwear or the textile industry also uses this in making strings, threads, and various other small souvenir products. Now, the reason I've mentioned this Chamoli district is because this particular place has a very unique relation with Bichubuti or this nettle. In earlier day, even today for that matter, this particular plant is used to discipline naughty children in school. And in earlier days, or even today, in several parts of small Himalayan towns, it's a common thing to observe that men often sit and idle around while the women do the hard work. Now, in Chamoli earlier, the scene was quite similar, and because of idleness, the men often indulged in consuming a lot of alcohol, and it later on became quite a bit of nuisance over there. So the ladies out there took an initiative to rid the alcoholism from their community, and they had actually used bichugas to punish the alcoholics as they came across. And surprisingly, it was quite effective, and it did work out. Now, this was the movement was so successful that it was also documented in Uttarakhand's annals or official documents, wherein with pride they have mentioned that this particular plant has been used to help get rid of alcoholism from that district. So that was a very unique story out there, and it also highlights like how such a simple looking plant can have an impact in the local community, or rather on the local community. In moving across continents, it has also found its way in literature, wherein in Shakespeare's King Henry IV, the plant has been mentioned. It is also mentioned in Aesop's fable, and it is also responsible for the word called nettled, which means irritated or angry. And this is probably because of the side effects or the ill effects of this plant. People do get annoyed or irritated. The next plant was again during the same time was the Himalayan blue poppy, a very beautiful, good-looking flower. Medicinally, it has mild sedative properties, and it's found from Uttarakhand to parts of China, including Burma and Bhutan. And it has a very unique relationship with Bhutan rather than India. When the plant was, it's today considered as the national flower of Bhutan. It earned this title somewhere around 2002 or 2005. I'm not sure of that. But it has a very interesting story. Now, the plant looks rather delicate and it blooms only during specific time in the Valley of Flowers or near the Hemkund Sahib Gurudwara region in Uttarakhand. And so what the local, when it, the people near Bhutan, they heard of this flower, they were like, in such harsh conditions, a delicate flower like this cannot grow. And it was considered a myth. But later on, when they found that this plant actually grows, they had a new built respect for this plant and they associated with royalty. And they believed that a, that a blue blood flows through this plant and this flower, and because of that, it has a blue color. Now, blue blood is a classical term associated with royalty, because of which this plant is also associated with the Bhutan royalty. The look, given its sedative effects, it has also been used in occult or shamanistic use, wherein it is believed to give insight to the people who consume this plant, and it enhances the psychic abilities of the individuals who consume this plant. The third interesting plant, which I came across during the same Valley of Flower trek, was Brahma Kamal. Again, a very unique looking plant, a very beautiful plant with a very strong aroma. And this plant has a very important significance, a religious significance in the local community. At the same time, there is also a very strong debate related to this plant. It is considered as a rare plant. It is a state flower of Uttarakhand. And there are several different stories associated with this flower. Now, before moving to the stories, just a quick distribution of this flower, where it is found in Afghanistan, Pakistan, parts of Jammu Kashmir to Uttarakhand, parts of China, Tibet, as well as parts of Burma and Mongolia. A close relative of this plant is more widely distributed and is found in Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, also mainly in large numbers in Lahaul Spiti Valley, that's the Kasturi Kamal, and a poorly documented cousin, that is Fain Kamal, which is found at much higher altitudes and in a more rocky terrain. So probably in parts of Lahaul Spiti or Ladakh, it is assumed to be present. Now, although it has such spiritual attachment, and it is assumed to be very, very helpful botanically or medicinally, this plant is until recently, it was very poorly documented or studied, and only around early this year, about March or April, a proper detailed ethnopharmacological analysis and the medicinal aspects of these plants were published. Now, traditionally, the entire plant is used for various aspects, from treating, say, common conditions like cough or cold, to increase the appetite, as well as it's being used as an antiseptic. And in the Tibetan medicine, or traditional Tibetan medicines, it is also used to treat paralysis. Now, most of these applications seem quite far-fetched, and majority are not yet clinically proven. But it's interesting to know that how a single plant can be used in a multitude of different conditions, and it is still being used from ancient times to now. And people are still believing in its medicinal properties and its role. Now, this plant is also associated with Hindu mythology in particular. It derives its name from Brahma, the god of creation. Now, there are three different stories that are associated with this plant. First is the birth of Lord Ganesh. Now, we all of most of us are familiar with this story that uh, Lord Ganesh got his elephant head when his father, that's Lord Shiva, did not recognize him, and he severed his head. And later on, with the help of Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu, they attached the elephant head to the body, and hence Lord Ganesh got his elephant head. Now, during in this story, when Sanjeevani Booty was added to revive or give life to Lord Ganesh, even Brahma Kamal was used because of its medicinal use to help uh, fix the elephant's head onto the human body. So that was one connection with the Indian mythology. Second connection of this plant is seen in Ramayana, when Lakshman was hurt with the arrows during the war, Sri Lanka war, and Hanuman was asked to find Sanjeevani Booty. And when Lord Hanuman flew across the Himalayas, and because he could not recognize the Sanjeevani Booty, he raised the entire mountain and he brought, in order to praise Lord Hanuman's effort to save Lakshman. Brahma Kamal were showered by the gods. And the third relation, it is comes in Mahabharata, wherein during their exiles, as Pandavas and their wife Draupadi moved across the Himalayas, Draupadi came across sorry, Draupadi came across a golden shimmering lotus-like flower, which they described as the golden lotus. And she asked Beam to go and procure this flower for her. And as Beam went through the mountains looking for this flower, he came across his elder brother, that is Lord Hanuman. And that is how the flower got connected to the Mahabharata, wherein it helped connect Beam with his elder brother Hanuman. So there are several such mythological connections of this particular, specifically this particular flower, and because of that, it is also used in various religious uh, situations, mainly in Uttarakhand, where it has a very sacred value, and it is often offered to all the important shrines like Kedarnath, Badrinath. And during the September-October time, if one were to visit these regions, especially during the festival of Nanda Ashtami. This flower is also offered as a prasad, where parts of the mainly the petals of the flower are mixed with local sweeteners and jaggery and are offered as a prasad to all the deities or all the pilgrims who come and attend this festival. The next flower is a flower that most of us again are familiar with, and at least we've heard the name, and that is rhododendrons. Now, across Himalayas, there are three unique species of rhododendrons that are found. Uh, First is Rhododendron arboreum, which is found mainly in Himachal Pradesh. Its cousin that is found in Sikkim, and yet another distant relative found in Nepal. So when we say, oh, we saw rhododendron in Himachal, we'll say, okay, it's also found in Sikkim. But the thing is, scientifically, both these plants, although they are related to each other, chemically, there is a slight alteration in these flowers, because of which their medicinal aspect or their clinical applications tend to vary slightly. Now, the one that I had encountered was in Himachal Pradesh. Locally, it is called as lal brass or burad, or that's what the locals called it. And again, like Brahma Kamal, it has a important spiritual importance as well as economic importance in Himachal Pradesh. Now, this particular plant, locals use it as a coloring agent. They make local liquor from the flowers, as well as cold drinks or chutneys, or they even eat it raw. Now, when I came across this particular aspect, that this flower is eaten raw, and that I came across while preparing for this talk, a very interesting memory came back to me. During my recent most trek in 2019 in the Great Himalayan National Park, that is the Tirthan Valley region of in South Himachal, while we were moving across, I saw one of our local guides chewing on this flower, and at first it appeared quite odd. Like, why on earth is he just picking up this flower from the ground? It's a fallen flower. He just dusts away the mud or the dirt, and he starts chewing on it. I mean, if he's hungry, we have a lot of food with us. In fact, he's only carrying our trek food with us. He could easily eat that. So for a moment, I was okay, must be something. But then curiosity got the best of me, and I eventually asked him, like, why are you eating this flower? So he was like, it is helpful. And later on, while I was taking this photograph that I was seeing here, he picked up a flower for me and he was like, Sarji, ye kha lo aap, ab bimar nahi hoge. So basically, he was like, you eat this flower and you will not fall ill. Now, back then, I did not realize what he meant by fall ill, because I thought I am healthy. I have nothing, there's nothing wrong with me. So why is he talking about this? But later on, when I read more about this flower, I realized chewing on this flower helps reduce altitude sickness. And that is something really surprising for me. And also, it was interesting that how the locals associate this flower with during their travels. So it's not just they eat it or make food out of it or liquor out of it, but even when they are moving towards higher altitudes, they understand the importance of this flower and they use it. So that is pretty interesting for me. Apart from the flower, which has several uses to humans, but another interesting thing that this local guide told me was that while the flower is consumed or the leaves are consumed, normally they do not allow their local livestock to consume this flower or the leaves. So along with us in our trek, we had a shepherd dog coming, accompanying us. So just to uh, test what our local guide told us, I gave just put a leaf, this flower rather, close to the dog, and the dog just winced away and moved sidetracked. So he was right that the animals are able to sense that this plant is, or this leaf or flower are toxic to it, and because of that, they don't consume. Also, the shepherds out there, they make sure that their livestock do not consume this. Apart from the flower, the wood is also commonly used as source of fuel and charcoal, and it's also used in local construction over there. And the final entry that I have today is not from the Himalayas, but from my another trip along the Konkan coast in Maharashtra. Now, this was my very first, one can say it was an unexpected archaeological trip or a visit. And it was my very first cave exploration trip. So, online news, I'd come across that local archaeologists had found a 52,000-year-old cave, and they are still intrigued as to what was the purpose of this cave, and they found certain tools which they thought could be dating back to the Copper Age. So I asked now one of my friends, trekking friends, stays over there. That place is his native. That is Koloshi, the name of the village. That is his native house. And I was like, since it is your native place, let's go visit this cave and come. So these are the caves, and I believe I can the archaeological markings or the site markings rather are evident here. So these are the locations as to where they found certain tools. So while we were exploring these caves and moving across, there was this very unique flower which locally is called as Ukshi plant. It's a creeper that grows or covers almost all tall trees, and it has a thick bush that it forms. Now, guide over there, apart from my friend, it was his younger cousin who was taking us up there. Now, what he told was that this a healthy growth of this particular creeper is a sign of hope for most of the tribals who live around this region. So it was quite curious as to how come a creeper is a symbol of hope. So as he explained, some parts of the creeper, as it grows, are swollen. Now these swollen parts contain and store a lot of water. And in cases of extensive drought or water shortage, the local tribals depend on this particular large or thick bulbous growth of this creeper for water. So the locals encourage the growth of this creeper. So as the creeper grows and it spreads out, the more water it will store, and it will be better for the locals. That was a pretty interesting observation for me. And more interesting was the flower. Now, this flower, also known as the paper flower, when I tried to look up the medicinal properties, it was rather surprising that it is a very poorly studied plant. I mean, there are several ongoing studies taking place, which are where scientists are trying to describe or trying to identify what are the beneficial properties. And so far, they've come across that it has very good antibacterial activity. But besides that, whether it has more uh, medicinal use or not is still being investigated. So the purpose of sharing these experiences or these images was to uh, highlight the importance of several uncommon plants. Now, here I'm calling them uncommon is because when we consider medicinal plants or when we consider those that are used in cooking, the most common names come that such as say turmeric or basil or let's say green chilies or coriander, something that we find in markets or when we find it commercially. But then there are several such plants that are not commercially available, but yet they are used by the locals. And it becomes very important. Well, as a scientist, for me, it was very important to document them and to understand them in order to study the diversity and their medicinal aspects or their benefits, and further explore the rich biodiversity that is spread across our country and how it is being exploited. So, with this, I end my talk. I hope you all found this, well, most of you did find this interesting. So, with that, thank you very much. Sonali?
Yeah, Manan, thank you. That was such a good and engaging talk, and your illustrations are absolutely beautiful. I mean,
Thank you.
you could have many professions, and that's wonderful. So, yeah, the first thing that really struck me about your talk was number one, your interest. Like for you, travel, and for those who are, non academics on this platform, that traveling doesn't mean that you just need to be. You can just be a traveler, and most of these early British accounts where people were documenting, they were not specialists in their field, and it's a plus that you are a specialist, but still that whole quest for understanding these things and the local knowledge and the way you brought it together. And it's so important. Ethnobotany is so important. And there is no dearth of these things in the Himalayas. And I really would love to invite you to collaborate on something. We should do a workshop together on indigenous plants and stuff. And while
Sure,
I was
that would
look,
be wonderful.
yeah, and while you were showing illustrations, I've always been a fan of these Victorian notes, these early accounts where they would, draw things. And a very good friend of mine who I met, through this Mahima Mehra. I don't know if she's here because of the Shera. She was having some guests, but. She paints very well, and I urged her and Parth. Parth is into taking a lot of photographs, Dr. Parth Chauhan, of
Mhm.
birds. So I told Mahima, I said, let's get together, let's make a book where you draw and we write about the birds. And now I'm like thinking we need to do a book with you too. And I would really want you to be on board on that if you would like to.
Sure,
Um,
that would be interesting. It's actually funny. I got inspired, or one of the things that motivated me to make such maps. As a child, it was reading a lot of books, especially pirate books, where you had these treasure maps.
mhm.
And later on, what encouraged me was, I mean, you may find it funny, but books like Lord of the Rings by Tolkien and Hobbit. Now, his books, if y'all have read, they have these detailed maps of the fantasy world that he had created called Middle Earth. And the detailing that was shown, it was simply amazing. So that encouraged me to, or rather motivated me to make such maps. So it's been a habit. So even in local treks where I go, I tend to make such these maps, and it serves as a memory for
Yeah.
me.
And that's what I was getting to, like for the non-academics and for the academics, if you go on travels, document. That's the key. Everybody has a unique perspective. You may be a PhD, you may be just working in some company, but you have this unique perspective of seeing the world. Maybe art is not your forte, but maybe observation is, maybe conversations are. Record everything, record, because somewhere someone is going to use it and write history, write narratives. And it's so important to digitize all of this as well. So I'm so glad that you're doing it. And of course, when you were talking about stinging nettles, where I am in Kulu Valley, my dear friend Rajiv, my son was getting very indisciplined. He's this 7-year-old boy. He said, "Have you ever tried bichu booty?" I said, "No." And then he said, "It's very good for the blood." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "And you can do this to him." And I always, when he has to do his work, my son, I just take a branch of the stinging nettles and I sit, like this, without losing my temper, without anything. And he's like, "Mama, please don't do it." And he just starts working away. So it really works wonders. As torturous as it may sound, I may sound like a witch saying it, but it works. And I will,
It's a very hilarious incident now that I remember it.
yeah.
Back then it was painful, but it's a very hilarious incident. So that was my association with this plant.
Yeah, and I've
So
oftentimes been afflicted by the pain of a bichu booty. It's so painful, and of
it is
course,
very
yeah,
painful.
and of course, the antidote is right there. Antidote is right there, like you said, the spinach. And I will post 2 videos, and I'm sure Manan, you've seen those. They are the Himalayan Institute videos of when Parth, I, and a couple of others, and Rajiv, we were traveling, and of course much of the information I don't know. Rajiv kind of tells me because he's from the place, and he would tell me this is used for this. This is oregano growing on high altitude. So I'll post those videos for those who want to see it, and I'll start taking the questions. Okay, but before we take the questions, I have 2 announcements. Actually, it's one announcement. So the grand announcement is that we have Dr. Angela Suzik Pitzer and Dr. Ekta Singh. Okay, very very dear friends of mine. I'll introduce Dr. Angela first. Angela and I, we were both from UCLA. We shared a tent for almost a decade in Egypt. She's one of the most brilliant archaeologists I know, and she's joining our core team of the Himalayan Institute. So I don't know if Angela can hear this, but Angela, I'm so happy to have you on board because with your expertise and your brilliance, you can really uh, enlighten us all further. And of course, she has been in the realm of Egypt, but now the Himalayas, the greatest desert and the greatest mountains. So I welcome you, Angela. And Ekta Singh, she's a recent PhD from Garhwal University. I have spent a time with her where she accompanied me on an ethnographic project in Borneo in Indonesia. She's a very dear friend of mine as well. And she's joining us very soon at the Himalayan Institute. She will be a resident, and she's a member of the core team as well. So we have so much in store, and of course, all of you who are here, we're open to collaborations and everything. Just write to us, and with the inclusion of Angela and Ekta, I'm sure we will do wonders together as a team. And Parth is there, of course. He's always been there from the very beginning. So slowly but steadily, it's growing. And I'm so happy that we all together make it possible. So I would like at some point for Ekta and Angela to come on screen and say hi whenever, during our session today, whenever you're ready, just let me know. And yeah, so Ekta is saying,
Hello.
yeah, that's
Hi.
Angela.
Hi. Sorry, it says Atticus, my son,
Oh,
but
yeah, that's
nice to
okay.
meet you all.
Yeah. So, Angela, if you could give a brief introduction about yourself, I really want everybody to know you. So,
Um, I specialized in Roman glass in Egypt, and earned my Ph.D. At UCLA with Sonali, studying Egyptian archaeology. Worked with Sonali several seasons, probably about 8 seasons, I think, in Egypt.
Long seasons.
How many?
Long, 8 very long seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, and the work there was just incredibly enriching. Although I focused mostly on archaeology, we worked directly with the villagers in which we lived, and developed really close relationships with them, which really expanded my understanding of the culture, which was very specific to that region also, because a lot of the villagers were originally from Libya. So their customs were quite different than, of course, those of people in Cairo or Giza or elsewhere in other rural villages. So although Egypt is what brought me originally to archaeology, I'm really excited to work in the Himalayas and learn more as we go along, but very excited. So thank you, Sonali.
Thanks, Angela. So happy to have you on board. And at some point, Angela is going to talk about her research in the future whenever she is ready. We have the platform flowing every week. So whenever you want to take a dip in, you'll be on. Yeah. So thank you. And I would like Ekta to come online as well. I would like to introduce Ekta. So where are you, Ekta? Are you around? Okay, internet issues. So let me take the first question. Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Bose, your first question. And after we're done with the few questions, I'll have Ekta come back again. And I would also like to introduce Mahima Mehra today, because I feel that she and Manan share this illustration passion, and I want her to come online as well at some point. So Dr. Bose, your question, please.
Mine is mostly an observation. Manan, first I enjoyed your talk so much. It was so informative, such fun. And for someone who's a dilettante and just comes here and listens and learns and comments, it's a very enriching experience. If Nandini is there, then she will tell you that it's the bichu buti is bichuti in Bengali, and it's used to discipline young boys, and it's supposed to be efficacious if you stand them in the sun because it burns more. So there's a threat in Bengali that I will thrash you with the bichuti and make you stand in the sun. And as Shonali said, little boys are terrified. It's a form of disciplining children. I'm a health professional, a health researcher, and I know that the stinging nettles give you a kind of rash, which is nettle rash, which can recur. And it can be quite serious for young children as well. So several health experts now discourage such experimentations. So, and the other
yes,
just
it's true.
because they erupt in boils, which are very dangerous for the skin. The other thing I wanted to, the rhododendron, of course, I've used it myself because I have altitude sickness, and whenever I travel in rhododendron country, they always advise me to have baranchka juice or chew a baranch plant, and it's so beautiful that I almost feel guilty chewing it. And they do also use it as decorative. It's kind of a barrier for animals around, as a hedge, so that livestock don't get into their gardens, and it looks very beautiful. And the third and the final observation was that my friend and mentor, Dr. Anjali Kapila, isn't here, but her talk is on the HICS website. She's a wonderful illustrator. So at one point, I'm sure both of you would like to do a workshop with us, because she has illustrated all her talks herself by doodling with a black pen, and the illustrations almost come alive like your maps. So congratulations once again. I think it's fascinating, and the enthusiasm and the vibrant talk that you gave us really
Thank
made
you.
my Dashera. Happy Dashera,
Thank you
Vita, and
very
thank
much.
you very much.
Happy Dashera. Thank you very much.
That's such a compliment that your talk made
Indeed, yes.
the Shara, right?
Yeah.
So we'll take the next question, Dr. Nandini Bhattacharya. Your question, please.
Manan, this is such
Sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you.
such a fascinating presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But I have been kind of working in the Eastern Himalayas for some time and working on the food, not only plants, not only herbs, but also the frogs and other kinds of, living things. So, I mean, I think what you have started doing, I don't know how far you have gone, but I mean, we have heard the tip of the iceberg. It is the beginning of the food movement. It is beginning of a new movement in globally, not only in India. Um, I have Vijay Lakshmi told you something. I will just add. One is Dhatura. Dhatura, we call
Yeah.
it Dhutra, as Vijay Lakshmi said. Actually, it is. I'm from Bengal, Kolkata. It is very much available in Bengal, and yes, as you said that it can drive. I mean, overdose can make someone mad, and I have seen people just mix it with bhang. Bhang is that
Yes, ma'am.
is
Actually, even out here locally in Maharashtra, uh, it's often used for the locals to commit suicide. And because of
yes,
which it is very,
yes.
no one
I just
encourages
wanted to
growing this plant nearby.
yeah, yeah. And secondly, I'm sure you are aware in Sandakphu, Darjeeling,
Yes, ma'am.
there are a plant in plenty, aconite plant. It's
Yes, Himalayan
poisonous.
aconites. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, aconite. And then, yes, nettles. And I have I have heard from the Lepcha community, they make nettle soups and they cook with nettles, but they have got some method to depoison the nettle.
Yes, ma'am. So
So,
at least what I had heard from the local during my trek is they boil the nettle plant, the
yes,
leaves, extensively till the trichomes, which are the small projections, the needle projections, they fall out, and then they use it. And speaking of aconite, here is a slide that you may associate with. So yeah, ma'am, the Himalayan aconite or the monk's hood.
yeah. I've seen actually, Manan.
So they grow extensively in Ladakh. In fact, in Ladakh, they use it for hunting.
No,
Species
no.
of
Aconite,
and
I mean, aconite, the colonial people, they saw it there and it is poison.
yes,
Um, as it is poison
yes, it
without
is.
being processed.
But even in medicinal use, in some quantities, it is beneficial. It has good health benefits, as if we consider, say, homeopathic medicines or the local
Yes, at least
Ayurvedic
so.
preparations. It
Yeah,
has. And a variety of aconite. Here that I've mentioned, given a scientific name, that is aconite luridum and aconite nepalis. They are collectively called the Himalayan aconite, which grows only there. And they are distant cousins, if we may put it in a very colloquial manner, to the other aconites which are grown in the northern hemisphere in Europe and the US.
yeah. And finally, I will just draw your attention. I'm sure you were aware about it, that the algae in the Himalayas, particularly in Sikkim, um, these they are eaten like a food, but they have got lot of medicinal values. And actually, I'm very happy that I have the opportunity to hear your presentation. So I am kind of developing more interest into the herbs and plants and foods of the indigenous communities. Thank you, Manan. Thank you.
So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manan. And let's see if Dr. Vijayalakshmi Bose had another question.
I just have another two quick observations. I'm a great reader of spy thrillers, and aconite is often used for something connected with the heart, and it's also used as a poison. And I can remember at least three stories: one in Bengali and two by Agatha Christie, where aconite was two, and one by Sherlock Holmes, where aconite was actually used to kill, and it was an aconite overdose. That's one. The second is that I would like to encourage what Nandini said, Manan. I'm part of I work a lot in public health nutrition, and we're trying to, and the World Food Program got the prize for Peace Prize this year, Nobel Peace. What we're trying to do is to encourage local foods. So like nettle is spinach and any other foods that can be grown locally. However, there's a tremendous international lobby, as you know, that is preventing this. For instance, there used to be over 135 kinds of rice grown in Dehradun, and now we only have just a few
Okay.
left. So grow
That is a
local and
new thing
use
for me,
local
ma'am.
foods is something. So whenever you discover a plant that can be used as a food, do document it, because that is of great interest to people who are trying to encourage, like the Nutrition Foundation of India, trying to encourage people to grow local spinach, use local spinach, not buy from the market, grow food and be self-sufficient, because that's also ecologically sensible. So I just thought I'd bring this to your
Indeed.
notice. There is a movement worldwide, as Nandini said.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, ma'am.
And
Thank you,
also,
ma'am.
like for example, in the Kulu Valley, red rice cultivation was the thing, but gradually with apple cultivation, a lot of these terraces for where red rice was cultivated were done away with, because of course apple orchards are more lucrative. But now there are certain organizations and organic farms that are really getting into red rice cultivation again, which is nice. And we kind of need to inspire people to do that. जैसे कहते हैं प्रोत्साहन बहुत आवश्यक है देना to those communities that
That's
it,
That's right, Sonali. But there's one drawback to that. When we encourage people to grow certain crop, it often leads to what is known as monoculture. Now, because of monoculturing, what happens is only one type of crop is being grown in that area, and that over a period of time, it affects the local ecosystem. Now, we may not consider or think of plants being social species like how we are, but the plant ecosystem, it is a very close knit social system, and this knit is underground through the roots. So in case of when there is a monoculture is encouraged to proliferate, it largely affects the local ecosystem. There's a very beautiful documentation of this, which was done in Europe, in forests of Germany. Now, over there, pine trees or softwood trees are grown extensively, mainly because of its commercial demand. But they started affecting the growth of local flora. And in a very interesting story form, it has, or in a narrative form, it has been documented in a book called Hidden Life of Trees. So, because of after reading that, I was not very supportive of encouraging monoculturing of any particular species. So while it is good to promote local plant growth or local flora, but it also has to be done in a very how to put it, in a very careful manner.
But I do
So
want to
that
say, Manan, like when you talk about red rice cultivation being replaced by apples, they have really depleted the soil. People are using pesticides and nothing else but apples are being grown on these orchards. So that's also a kind of just one thing.
exactly, it is
Yeah.
monoculturing. That is
Yeah.
actually a very bad thing. It's beneficial commercially, but from ecological point of view, it is very detrimental.
Yeah, so that needs to change. The whole idea of
Yes,
monoculture needs to change.
it
Not
has to
just
be
not
changed.
having just red rice, but being replaced, like how you have different seasons so that the soil is replenished with some other crop, which
Along
kind of
with it,
fills
like
in.
when we see, say for example, as I think as it was mentioned that there are various varieties of rice being grown locally.
Hmm.
Now, when a local plant is growing, it has a unique, you can say, a relationship with the other plants that are growing around it.
Hmm.
Now, when we uh, cultivate or when we add in a new plant, the local relationship is affected. So, when we are, say, for example, promoting or reviving growth of, say, red rice in Kulu Valley, locally, which are the plants were grown side by side? Wild plants which may not actually have any, say, commercial value or any cultural value, but they are growing alongside with this plant.
Mhm.
That also has to be taken into consideration because at the root system underground, they may be benefiting a plant.
Hmm.
So that before promoting any kind of revival of ecosystem, this delicate relationship has to be considered first.
And it brings to mind, for example, in the Americas, maize, squash, and beans are grown together because they kind of complement each other.
Exactly. So there are
Yeah.
these relations have to be considered
Mhm.
before promoting any growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for telling us about that. And we have the next question. Ubaid. Ubaid, put your video on. Ubaid is a student, a former student of mine who joined Parth and I for our first workshop this year, right before the lockdown. Principles of Archaeology. Ubaid, you can put your video on now and ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
I'm sorry as I am in 2G network, so if I put my video on, I might lose the connection.
No worries. We'll just hear your voice then.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for arranging this talk. And thank you so much, Dr. Desai, for this enriching talk. Actually, I was searching for the scientific name of Katuki from last 2 days.
Okay.
So, thanks
I
again.
hope you got the name.
Yes, doctor. So, I just came back day before yesterday from my 2 months along field work among the Bakarwal tribe in Jammu and Kashmir. So, I traveled
Okay.
around 300 kilometers from Gurez Valley, you were talking about, in
Yes.
Katuki section to Punch region.
Okay.
So, actually, it's not a question, it's a rather observation. Uh, like you said, in Gurez Valley, actually, this
Mm,
plant it's found in
mm,
Patalwan region that is around 7-8 hours trek from main Gurez town. And
uh-huh.
one interesting thing when I found the local name of this
Mm,
in Google, I couldn't find anything at all. Like I said, I was not able to find
okay.
this scientific name because they locally call it code. Like there were many
Uh-huh.
names
Okay.
for it, Katuki, etc. But when I saw the picture you had posted in your presentation, so I realized that this is what I'm searching for. So it's known as gourd, and
Uh-huh.
they use it for like, various skin problems and for stomach problems. And one thing they are trying recently, they said one of their elder, he was suffering from diabetes, and
Mhm.
doctors they had prescribed various medicines to him with which he was not kind of okay. So he just was trying code from last 2-3 months, and his sugar level something it was to 50, and it
Uh-huh.
directly came down to one it directly came down to 90 in only 2 months by
Oh,
using this code only.
That's
So
interesting.
my father, he's also suffering from diabetes. So I got some amount of code with me back as a field work, a gift from them. They gifted me these herbs and everything else. So now my father, he has also, completely, he's not taking any kind of medicine. Like earlier, he used to take 2 tablets a day or 3 tablets a day. Now he has completely stopped taking medicine and using only this code. And, interestingly, his blood sugar level is also coming down from 150 to 80, 85, 90, 95 around this.
So how do
So
the locals prepare it? Is it just the dry root powder, or is there a specific way of
yeah,
preparing it for before giving it to the patient?
yes, actually, when they get this plant from the higher altitudes of Patalwan region, it is
Hmm.
ready in around August, ending August or starting September. So the time when they start their autumn journey to Jammu plain, so they get this plant, and while on the way, it takes around 1 month to complete the journey. They whenever they reach their halt place, they keep these different herbs and sun dry them, and then pack them daily. And when they reach their destination in Punch Valley, they'll just ground it, and then it's kind of a powder kind of a thing, and they use it early in the morning with empty stomach. They don't eat anything before it, and then they put it in cold water. They specifically told me, do not use hot water at all. Like
Okay.
put it in cold water, and then drink this water on empty stomach, and you will be healed like in a month or two. So this is the way
Okay.
they gave me like roots, dried roots, tuber,
Yeah.
and then I ground them back in the home.
Okay.
So and
That's interesting.
they use they use other some herbs like sheet khar is there, patris, nera, chora,
Hmm.
other and datura.
Uh-huh.
Earlier our elders, whenever we told like ask for some food earlier, like when I was a child, I used to ask my grandfather for anything, like I want to eat this kind of stuff, and get it for me in market. So he used to say that uh, you are not getting anything, eat datur. In Kashmiri we call it datur, and it was kind
Okay.
of a mocking kind of a thing that you deserve datur only.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's interesting.
So
And
Actually,
all,
this
that part of the Himalayas I've not traveled much, so it was a very interesting what you've shared.
Yeah, absolutely. In Patalvan region, it's not everybody like writes like gurez directly. Whenever they talk
Uh-huh.
about gure, Bakarwal and all, they write gurez. But in gurez, I explored Gurez Valley, Tulil, Gurez, and other like Kansalman.
Hmm.
These herbs are actually not found in that part of the Gurez Valley. So it's like about a 30, 40 kilometer uphill trek, and then
Hmm.
you get to find those herbs and all. And Patalvan, it's not. It's also not in the map at all.
Yeah. Most of these herbs are not either they're not well documented or they are
Mhm.
very difficult to find.
Absolutely. So that's why. Like, oh, thank you so much. I got
Thank
the
you.
scientific name and other name as well for this.
I'm glad I was able to help you out.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
also this indigenous knowledge, even with the locals, when they know what not to eat is also very important. Like, how do they know that? Because there has been this kind of transference of knowledge from their parents and their parents' parents who tell them, eat this, don't eat this. So even
Yes.
though it's not documented, at least by word of mouth, that tradition has been carried on. And that's so important to document it, because with this, global changes and things coming together, this knowledge might be lost. So
Yes.
very important to document it all. So I'm so glad that there's so many of us here who are doing that. Yeah, let me see if we have more questions. Any more questions? Okay, I'll wait for some to raise their hands, but in the meantime, maybe I can call Ekta back. Ekta, are you there? She said she could hear us, we couldn't hear her. Ekta, are you around? Okay. While she comes on, we have a question. Dr. Vibha Joshi, you can take on the mic.
Hi, Sonali, and hi, Manan. I'm feeling like a fool. I've missed your talk because our clocks have gone back, and I completely forgot that they've gone back. So though I have missed your talk, I'm hoping that Sonali will post it, so I will hear it. But in the meanwhile, this is like somebody who does not know what you have talked about. I'm asking you because I also worked on traditional healers in Nagaland, and they used to use several herbs, and of course most of the names were in the traditional local language. But I wanted to ask you, did you sort of collect your information from traditional healers, and did they tell you that the herbs were revealed to them in their dreams, or did they learn by becoming an apprentice?
No, so for instance, the first herb which I had spoken about, that is Katuki, that was probably from, you could say, a local healer who was selling the herb and who described the preparation just as Ubaid just now was talking, to sun dry the roots and keep it overnight and then consume it. Some other herbs were, they are not proper healers or apprentices, but they were locals who have encountered them through their experience. So during the treks, our local guides who accompany us or who take us in our trek, when they come across these herbs, say like the stinging nettle or the bichugas, back then it was used as a punishment. So probably most of the local guides who take us in their childhood, they must have encountered this sort of punishment. So through their experience, they have shared. And same thing goes for plants like flowers like rhododendrons. But then when it comes to plants say like Brahma Kamal, that I had, it was based on discussions with the locals. Some of them, I believe, were medicine practitioners, but I'm not sure of. So often when I come across these facts or these stories, I just tend to interact with the locals and how they came to know about it. You know, most of them are not, uh, they don't practice it specifically, but it's through their experience.
Thank you. So,
That's interesting. Yeah.
so Ekta has some connectivity issues. In the meantime, I'll urge Mahima, if you're online.
Yeah. Hi, Sonali. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a privilege to just attend these lectures, which, I mean, otherwise we would have never got the opportunity of hearing such esteemed speakers. So it's like something, which I think people are missing out if they're not connecting. And unfortunately, I got a little late in joining in today, but I am going to hammer Sonali to put on the recording as soon as possible, because Dr. Manan's illustrations I have to see, and I would love to connect and would love to work with whoever possible. And I definitely would want to put in here that Sonali has been my link with the Himalayas. I mean, I was in no way connected apart from just being a travel kind of a passionate traveler, but through her and Dr. Parth, I got connected to the birds of the Himalayan region and the homes which they click beautiful pictures. And I've been painting, and because of that, I've been researching more about them. And that's how the link just started. And I'm there now every 3 months. So it's been a fascinating journey. Thank you, Sonali, once again. And looking forward to working together with everybody out here. It's going to be great.
Great. It's no, you're such an inspiration yourself. Your illustrations are the way you capture Mahima, the way you capture the mountains and snippets of the mountains. So Manan, we are actually Parth and I, we're doing a book together. It's in the, we are still, because I'm here and she's there, and when we connect, we are doing this together. She's making the illustrations of it, something on the lines of what you are doing, right? And we really want you to be a part of the book series, so let's all do it together.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and again, the institute is for everyone. Like I said, I want you to come collaborate with us, do workshops, lead workshops on ethnobotany and all this knowledge, so that all of us can learn. It's all about learning. So thank you so much, Mahima, for joining us. I'm so glad that I could introduce you.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to. Yeah.
Thanks. And let's see whether Ekta is online. Ekta, are you online? God, she said it's raining in Dehradun. So anyway, whenever she comes, I would love her to introduce. She works on grave cultures in Spiti. So that's also a very interesting side to things. And, Manan, when you were talking about all these things that you've come to know from the locals, I was in Egypt back, this was in, I think, 2006 or 2007. And my face had become all red, some allergy, something happened. And we had a 4-day break. And I and my 2 friends, we went to the Western Desert. And to that region where, it's been made famous by Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol's song with the white landscape in the background, Suraj Hua Madham. Whoever has heard that song, you can see it's such a beautiful landscape with this Hindi film song going on. But believe me, if you do not have that song, that landscape is just more beautiful. Okay. So anyway, there the locals in a nearby oasis told me, oh, what's happened? I said, I don't know. He says, oh, just wait. There was this pool, and they had this underground like sulfur water coming from there. They just said, just go and wash your face. I not only washed my face, I like literally immersed my entire face into that water, held my breath, and you won't believe it. After just half an hour, my face was cleared. So this knowledge, local knowledge, is so important. Here it was, of course, the sulfur water, and in the Himalayas there's so many sulfur water springs and these herbs and these concoctions, so rich. And it's really wonderful on this journey, on this quest. And I did notice on one of your beautiful illustrations, you had written about a cave. It caught my eye, where Ganesh was writing the Mahabharata as narrated by Rishi Ved Vyas.
Yes, at Mana village.
Yeah. And the thing is that Bias Kund, named after Vyas, Ved Vyas. Bias River is named after Ved Vyas. Its early Vedic name was Bipasha. So there too, they talk about Ganesh writing the Mahabharata. So Ganesh was like in Mana village, he was in Bias Kund. Where all was he writing the Mahabharata? So yeah, I was just, it came to my mind. Anyway, do we have any more questions, any observations? We have Angela. She has a question for you. Yeah, Angela, go for it.
Dr. Desai, thank you so much for the lecture. It was absolutely incredible. Really enjoyed it. I was wondering, it looked like, I think this wasn't the focus of your study, but you're a biochemist, correct? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering if it looked like in at least one of the slides you had shown the chemical makeup of the plant and kind of compared it with some of the properties that were assumed, it was assumed to have in terms of medicinal purposes and the like. Have you done that with a lot of the other plants that you've studied in terms of being able to break it down into chemical components that might produce the kind of effect that's desired or at least documented by the locals?
Yes, so the kind of work what we've done is taking, now locally out here in India, there are several such medicinal plants are often associated with cooking or in local home remedies. So we've picked up, so the team with which I had worked earlier, so what we had done is we had picked up selected some of these plants and chemically identified and isolated these compounds. And then we did some in vitro or in lab analysis of its activities. Mainly it was anti-inflammatory activity and anti-cancer activities. And then we support that data with the help of computational analysis and studies.
Thank you. That sounds very fascinating. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
So, Manan, I do have a question. With your line, like what do you envision doing, like in terms of your research, furthering your research, or the profession that you're in? Like, how do you think that you really can make a difference in terms of your study?
Uh, See, my research mainly revolves around studying evolution, specifically with respect to origins of life, and that too focusing on protein structures and how proteins behave. Uh, the kind of work that the kind of work that I do is mainly, you could say, it's more of academic work and theoretical work, and it helps understand how uh, different proteins they came into existence, how they function, how they are connected with other aspects within a cell, and different, and how they tend to give rise to such an elaborate living system, say from small a bacterium to a human being. So how that course has been covered is, that's where my focus is, and that's what I am interested in looking into in a bit more detail.
And another thing, when these medicinal properties of the plants, yeah, when biochemists or chemists, they use it to make medicines that are consumed by larger people. Do you think the efficacy is reduced or changed, or I don't know what happens? Like, what do you think in its raw form versus in its converted form? Which form, according to you, looking at the properties, these innate properties that these herbs and all have, which one is better according to you?
Uh, Actually, I'm not uh, properly qualified to answer that. A pharmacist would be a more ideal person to answer that question. But what I've observed is it largely depends in the manner in which it is prepared. So, as Ubaid had specifically mentioned that when he asked the locals how to use or prepare the Katuki roots, they had strictly said use cold water. Do not put it in hot water. Now, there's a reason as to why certain conditions are emphasized upon, whether to use cold water, whether to put it in, allow it to ferment when it is used traditionally. It is because depending on the manner in which it is prepared, the medicinally potent components which are having beneficial use, they get extracted in a better manner. Now, when it comes to commercial preparations, the same logic is utilized, except that we used in a more synthetic or in a more structured manner. That either we use an alcoholic preparation, or whether we use it in water preparation and then repackage it in terms of pills or in terms of syrup and make it more commercially viable. Now, today, if you are going to prepare, say for instance, if you're going to give a rhododendron flower to a person to eat, they may not consume it. But if you again take the chemical components from it, which are beneficial, package it or reformulate it, or put it in, say, a syrup or a drink, and then give it to them, it will be consumed. So both traditional and commercial ways of distributing or using these natural plants have their own pros and cons in it. And depending on how you use them, we can increase their efficacy and their beneficial values to it.
Yeah, very well explained. And then I have one more observation. Like you were talking about dhatura being
Yes.
used in the Americas, and that it is a hallucinogen as well, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I used to wonder, like, I know that in shamanistic practices in the Americas, they use ayahuasca and all of these things. But
Mhm.
when we talk about, especially the Kulu Valley, and I look at the gurs, or the nearest word to a gur would be a shaman or a medium or whatever. They do not use dhatura or hallucinogens, and they go into that trance, which is very intriguing because they do not take an external thing to induce a trance. So I've always wondered, is it the smell of they burn this juniper and something else they call it, I'm forgetting, I don't know,
So, I mean,
Shamsher.
so that if you look at, if you're talking about Kulwali, especially since you've been to Malana village,
Yeah.
out there, Malana is as such famous for marijuana. It's grown wildly over there, and several such opioids or such plants which contain potent hallucinogens are used. Some of them are documented, some are not very well documented. Now, most of these shamans over there, now my experience has been with the Naga Baba. In the Chilam, they often use marijuana or some such opioids, which gives them that trance feeling. In other practices, it is assumed that it is seen or observed that during such practices, there's always some form of smoke in the environment. So when they burn certain plants, some of these hallucinogens, they are transferred through the smoke and may be responsible for the that state of mind.
And there's a comment by Shamsher Thakur about that not true for Malana. I think, just to clarify, I think Manan is talking about the Naga Babas in Malana, not about the priests or
Locals over there.
yeah, the Nagas, the sadhus, because I have not seen.
They often tend to move around and from place to place, and they often use, or to some extent they even abuse these plants or these drugs that are there.
And it brings to mind, Manan, I read an article and it's really hilarious. I would like to share it. In Rajasthan, they grow, the Narcotics Control Bureau allows growth of opium, poppy plants, for medicinal purposes, right? So farmers do that. Now parrots, they kind of destroy the crops. They love opium, so they kind of get intoxicated and they love the taste of it, and they will have it, they peck on it, and they are having a merry time. So now the farmers have to cover that entire thing to keep the parrots who are addicted to the opium.
That's interesting.
That's pretty funny also, right? So
it
anyway.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, they are not only affecting humans, but even other animals and birds.
Exactly. So I wonder, the whole world must be in trance out there. Shamsherji, do you have any comments? Because he was talking about Malana. Yes, he does say. Can you come in and we can extend this discussion? Yeah.
Good evening, Dr. Saab. In fact, I agree with you. I was only complimenting Dr. Sonali. So far as shamans are considered compared, they so far as whatever I've seen from my childhood and whatever I have experienced, they don't use any stuff like opium or hash or anything like that. They're going to trance by themselves.
But one thing, Shamsherji, that Google dhoop, there's a dhoop, this incense that is there.
I know.
That's always burnt. The leaves, the ferns are always
along with
burnt.
juniper.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what Manan is talking about, that the smoke itself, it may not be opium, but the smoke kind of, and the drums kind of get to that.
So, Shamsherji, what happens is when we consider, say, juniper leaves or even those fern-like leaves, they might be containing certain compounds which have this kind of hallucinogenic effect. They may not have been documented, and they may not be addictive like hash or opium, but they do help get into this trance phase, and because of which they are able to do that.
I know what you're trying to communicate, but I think I may not
Yes.
agree because see, you must have you must have witnessed the environment where these
Right.
functions are going on. And if you want to say that the smell or the smoke of juniper along with the Google, then why
Mhm.
not the entire public goes into trance? I don't think that.
So, sir, what happens is the shamans who are there, uh, they get the concentrated dose of it because they're sitting right, they're closest to that smoke. Now, this is my assumption. Now, I don't know if it's actually happening, that a proper detailed study needs to be done. But what I believe or what I assume is that the shamans who are there, initially they do take a very inhale a very concentrated dose of the smoke. And the people who are surrounding, because they are not very close to the smoke, they do not get that effect. At the most, what they may experience is perhaps a little bit of uh, giddiness or slight tingling, some sensation in the forehead region or the head region, but nothing beyond that. It could be a reason, but
Doctor,
a proper.
yes, I know, Doctor Saab.
Huh,
Exactly. I want to compliment you with this thing because it may require a more elaborate study. But what I
right,
wanted to communicate is that, see, I have been in environment, very close environment, fortunately
right,
about
sir.
2 or 3 times when we were in a very closed environment, say about a room
Mhm.
about 15 by 20 feet. And this essence was there, whatever you're talking about, the juniper along with
Mhm.
Google and other substances that are being burnt. Essentially, these two substances are the major ones.
Right, sir.
But other people in the room were not affected. If you're talking about the concentrated effect, then I think I too had that effect. Although opium can have an effect on the people in the room.
Yes,
I
very
have seen
much.
firsthand people getting effects of opium if they are sitting in a very closed environment. But I think it's not true about Google or Juniper.
So again, the
And
difference
maybe
lies.
I think this subject may require a more study.
So again, so comparing juniper with say opium or hash, what is important to understand is the kind of chemical composition of both the plants. So what the kind of the amount of hallucinogens that are present say in opium may be more potent or in more concentration as compared to junipers. They may not be that very potent. So you don't have the same effect as what you see in case of opium. So if someone is smoking opium in a closed room, it may have a more stronger effect as compared to say using juniper or any other plant, which have very mild hallucinogens. So they may not actually have a very strong effect.
I know, Doctor.
But
Even I am trying,
so as you
as
rightly
my love.
said, we may have to, a more detailed study needs to be done in this.
And I think all these discussions actually help us kind of uh, connect connect the dots. And it's something very interesting that we should kind of investigate, that how is that trance achieved without a hallucinogen, but with other things that are all pervasive, like juniper has to be burned. There is no two ways about it. So what is this property about juniper that needs to be explored that allows this to happen? I think that is the question, and that is our task as researchers to find out. So that's really great, because we have the insiders and we have the outsiders, the etic and the emic, right? And to find out what's going on. And I have to narrate this small incident. I was in Los Angeles a few years ago, and the person who lived nearby used to smoke a lot of hash, right? And I have a little child, and I was getting very disturbed. And of course, marijuana is legal in California. And one of my friends from India said his friend is coming and I have to pick them up from the airport. I said, okay. And I went there and I messaged my friend in India. I said, your friend is not here. So he said, don't disturb me. It's early morning. I said, okay. And after a little while, this friend of mine, his name is Dr. Saif Mahmood. He's a lawyer in Delhi. Suddenly he comes out of coffee bean, and I'm so shocked, and I felt, is this the effect of marijuana on me, that I'm actually seeing people now who are supposed to be in India and they suddenly have transported to America? So that was my tryst with the, a supposed hallucinogen, which I took passively because of a neighbor. And actually, my friend had surprised me. He came all the way from India to give me a surprise. So I was just, it shocked the daylights out of me. So I wanted to just share that little story with all of you. Does anybody else want to step in on
Dr.
this?
Sonali, can I add a few things more?
Of course.
Yes. See, I was talking about growing plants at a lower altitude, and I think I
Mhm.
have succeeded somewhere. Somewhere I have failed. In fact, if I was talking about juniper, I was surprised. I have grown a juniper plant, but as compared to the smell of a juniper growing at a higher altitude, the juniper that is growing on a lower altitude does not emit that type of smell which the juniper is growing at a high altitude. I'm surprised.
Really?
And then actually, you know how the juniper, it's a traditional thing. Actually, how juniper is extracted. If you have to use it for religious purposes. In fact, I was surprised to know I was on a trek recently to one of the lakes situated at about, I think, 16,000 feet. So, in Bhrigu Lake. And in fact, we saw these
Wonderful
plants.
place.
Yes, I think you must have gone, Dr. Saab, because you have done a lot of treks. And in fact, I was told that for religious purposes, a man has to uh, be on fasting, and he should not use axe to extract axe or any cutting tool to extract this juniper. So I did not extract anything. Otherwise, they say that is totally religious, but I did not do it. And second thing, as Dr. Saab had said, I was this time so lucky. In fact, I heard the name blue poppy, the Himalayan blue poppy.
Mhm.
And first time I encountered it, I saw it firsthand on my trek to Bhrigu. And second time while I was on a trek to the shore. And the shore ones, they were very fresh. In fact, we lost our way and we went through the stony path. And there they were, growing in abundance. And thank you, Dr. Saab. Today I came to know that it is the national flower of Bhutan. I never knew it, in fact. And I captured some very good pictures, first-hand pictures of the rare Himalayan blue poppy.
You should share it
Yes.
on the interactions page. And for
Dr. Saab, I'll send it to you directly on your WhatsApp or your. I think they're on my Instagram account.
Sure.
okay.
The good pictures. But then I'll send
So
it to you, Dr.
some
Saab,
of the
personally.
pictures which I've shared here, the slides, they are my first hand account of those plants and the photographs which I've shared. I think except for the last one, which is Ukshi Plant, rest of them, the photographs were taken by me.
Mm.
And I'm surprised. In fact, the information that was given by Dr. Sonali's student, if very good, I think it can benefit the entire population of this world who are suffering from diabetes, if
Mhm.
this can be proved scientifically.
Right,
So,
right.
Shamsherji, the thing is, there are several such plants which have these very strong and very potent health effects. But the thing is, the manner in which they are prepared or how they are described locally, it is often controversial when it comes to preparing it commercially or making it available to the world. So that is probably one of the reasons as to why most of these plant extracts till date have not been exposed. So there's a lot of
And
studying still needs to be done to bridge this gap.
in fact, Dr. Manan, as I had, I think, already put it in my chat box in this forum. that you need to come to Kulu. There are many more plants as you have described. I have come across with some of the plants. I'm also very interested in such plants. And one of the plant that I encountered was while on a trek to the shore. And supposedly its roots are considered very good for healing fractures. And so
That's
when I
interesting.
went on a tour to some place beyond Lahore, while on a journey back, I managed to extract that root and I sun dried it, and I have kept it. Now let's see who I can give it to. So you need to come to Kulu. Even there are other plants like
Sure, sure,
there's a
definitely,
very
sir.
broad-leaved plant. It's found on very high altitudes, and it's called. Its roots are supposedly healers of for stones. And then there is another plant which I think 2 days back I was introduced to in Dharamsala while I was on a journey, and my friend told me that its leaves, although the method was very bizarre, he told me that this it was a very miniature plant. I'll share the photo with Dr. Sonali, and she may share it with you. It is
Sure, sir.
commonly found in heights like Kulu and Dharamsala and maybe even
Mm-hmm.
up to high altitude. But they told me that the miniature leaves, if they are crushed with spit of a person and then put over wounds, they immediately heal. I don't know how true it is, but I really, information is information. So I just clicked
Of
the
course, true.
photograph. So maybe you can you can maybe get more knowledge on that plant.
Actually, sir, the thing is, uh, in past, our ancestors, they have documented all these things, but the way of documentation is much different than what we have today. Today, we classify them or categorize documentation as scientific documentation or detailed documentation. But back then, in order to make the information available to everyone, it is often documented in terms of either stories or in terms of poems. So, what I shared of the Aztec culture, the Americas, the ill effects were, or the warning as to not to consume this plant because it is lethal, is mentioned in form of a phrase or in a story. So the documentation to a fair extent is there. It's just that we have to read the old scriptures a bit more carefully and try to read between the lines and make sense of it. We will able to find more such information and then connect it with the modern scientific mindset and elaborate it further.
Okay. I I would like to ask Rajiv Upadhyay to come online, because a lot of these walks that I have done with him, just learning about it on, and like Shamsher ji, he's from there. They have so much of traditional knowledge with them. Rajiv, can you come online? Because there was this particular plant. He cut off the branches of it, and he said, Sonali, if you want to sweep your garden properly, use this. And
Okay.
lo and behold, I did it, and it was so it was like almost raking. Rajiv, are you online? Can you come and share us about that knowledge that you have, and where did you get that knowledge from? If he's around, I can see him online, but is he listening is the question. Okay, I'll just wait for him to come, but in the meantime, I wanted to ask you, Manan, about this plant betul. What is the betul plant? Because betul or betul, because I know that the shamans, one of the things that they have to do as a test to prove that they are shamans, gurs, they are the ordained ones, they have to go and get this betul plant, which is not, I believe, commonly available. And if it grows on very high altitude, and they have to get it in a record time, as I'm told by all of the girls who are
Okay.
selected. And it's supposed to be a miracle that they can get it during that time. Do you know what the betul is?
I'm afraid not. I need to know its. I need to read a little bit more about it to answer as to why it is used or
Sonali
what
ji,
is it?
hello.
Hanji.
May I add?
Yes, yes, please do.
Yes, please do.
It's called the better. It's
Better.
better, and it's the juniper.
Yeah, I know.
Better,
Okay,
better.
Okay, but you
okay,
know, when they say it's the
It's
juniper,
juniper only.
is it a particular
okay.
kind of juniper? Because juniper is available everywhere, but what you said
No, no,
earlier,
no, no, no,
yeah,
no. Yes, yes.
you earlier
The
said that
juniper
there is a
that grows
different
on high.
kind.
Yes,
Okay, okay.
exactly. Now, if you go to Kelong,
Hmm.
Lahore, you'll see juniper plants growing roadside,
Hmm.
but they are called betri,
Okay.
Okay.
and they are not actually the same species. So the better that is used, it's
Mhm.
actually found on high altitudes. As I told you, while I was on a trek to Bhrigu,
Mhm.
I saw it there. It's not a tree.
Mhm.
It's like a shrub growing around
And
on the
is it
ground.
and is it true, Shamsherji, that they have to get it like in record time, and people say that it's impossible, but yet they do that. They know where to
Yes,
find
yes.
it.
In fact, it's commonly available on high altitudes.
Hmm.
And see, the method for extracting it for religious purposes
Hmm.
is different, as I told you.
Hmm.
But for commercial purposes, people are doing it every way. They just
So
cut the branches, and so as Dr. Manan already said, मतलब वो बेकार की वो एक्सट्रैक्शन इतनी ज्यादा कर लेते हैं वो कि वो स्पीशीज दे टेंड टू फिनिश
and another thing I want to add here, just what are you saying? When I was researching on potters in Rajasthan, there was a certain gleam on the surface of the pottery in Rajasthan in Amer. And I asked them, what is this? Where do you get this from? They said, oh, we can't go there. It's behind the mountains. I said, why can't you go there? They said, we can only go once a year. I said, why? They said, oh, there is a Rakshas, like a demigod, an evil demigod there, and you just can't take it out each time. Now, to me, I'm not going into the veracity of that statement, whether it's true or false. But the whole thing is the story that is concocted, maybe because of conservation, that do not quarry something so much that it cannot be replenished. So even religious um, kind of pinnings, like don't do this, don't do that, or the gods will get angry. I think that's another way of making sure that the plant species are not exploited.
Dr.
Or,
Saab, everything which we have in our Hindu mythology or in our Hindu culture,
hmm,
there has a specific meaning to it.
hmm,
Be it जो सूर्य को आप अर्घ देते हैं उससे लेके
hmm,
आप सारी चीजों को लाइए,
hmm,
everything has a meaning to it. But वो उसका समय के साथ उसका ना वो मतलब बदल दिया लोगों ने. In
hmm.
fact, everything has a meaning to it.
Hmm. Yeah, and for
And
those who do not understand Hindi, what Shamsherji is saying, that meanings, everything has a reason and a meaning, but those things have changed. Like people perhaps have forgotten about those things, right?
no, I just
And to
wanted to
add
say
on to
that
that, sorry,
yeah.
sorry, sir, go
No,
on.
no. I just wanted to say, Dr. Manan, I thought, I'm so sorry. I thought everybody understood Hindi in this medium, but I forgot that we have our viewers right through the world. I just wanted to add that every philosophy, every practice that is being used in Hindu philosophy has a meaning to it. Maybe with passage of time, some things have deteriorated. Maybe people have given a different meaning to it. But if what I'm trying to convey is that if you want to know about Surya giving water to the rising sun, it has a meaning to it. So far as other practices are concerned, everything has a meaning to it, which has corroded with passage of time. People have
Absolutely, sir.
corroded it.
And
People
to
have given it a different meaning. Yes.
Absolutely, sir. And to add on to that, not just in our Hindu culture or Hindu mythology, but if we take any ancient culture or mythology, be it Aztec, be it Celtic culture, be it Southeast Asian culture, Polynesian culture, wherever. So any of these cultures we look at and we look at their practices or their how they use plants or how they use certain things in a very particular or a specific manner, there is a reason behind it. They didn't just blindly do it because they didn't think that, okay, this sounds cool, so let's do it. It was not that.
Yes, sir.
There was a reason behind it. And it's now, for us, it is important to understand what was the reason and not just discard it, thinking that, oh, they were the ancients and they didn't know much and we are more knowledgeable now, so let's do it our way. That attitude is being changed now. So that is where things are now coming up, and we are going back to the olden texts, or texts of our ancients, and then trying to make sense from a modern perspective. That is with each and every culture.
Dr. Manan, the only thing that I worry about is I know sharing is knowledge, but
Absolutely,
then,
sir.
in fact, on the other hand, if you uh, sometimes the knowledge is misused. I'm
Oh,
telling you about
absolutely, sir.
herbs.
Not
Today you
sometimes,
told
most
about
of the time.
Absolutely.
today you told about herbs. I also came to know about a herb which is very efficient in healing bones and fractures and backbones and everything. I was surprised, and when I went to that place to extract it, I found so common digging. They dig it in unscientific way. I felt very sad. In fact, I wanted to tell you, you must be knowing about the herb, and it's very good for the people who have a failed liver, I think. And it's commonly available, I think, in Walmarts. It's called milk thistle, and it's
Yes, I've heard of that herb.
milk thistle. Yes, you should. It's available in the heights above, I think, Lahaul and Spiti. In fact, I have a friend. She's a lady doctor. She's an Amchi doctor.
Mhm.
She stays in my neighborhood, and she has her clinics in Delhi and Mumbai. So she's a famous daughter of a famous mother doctor, which I won't disclose in this topic because I'm not allowed to do so. But in fact, it was she who just told me about milk thistle. And milk thistle is that extract which I think can help cure the patients who are jinka liver kharab ho raha hai, the liver people. And it's available, but the dosage should be used according to the medical prescription. But it is a recommended herb for the people who suffer from liver failures. And it's called milk thistle, and it's widely available, but it's very difficult to extract. But it's a commonly available herb in the Himalayas.
Absolutely,
So
sir. And
the
to
only
add on
thing
to
that
that knowledge,
the only the Dr. Manan, before I cut you short, I'm so sorry.
sure.
The only thing that I worry about is the uska dohan jo karte hain. I'm so sad about it. The people, how the people extract it. Naag chhatri ko hi dekh lijiye. I don't know the common name of it in English,
Mhm.
but it's known as Nag Chhatri here in
Yeah, it is like
Kullu Valley.
that. It's like that. It grows on, and it has this thing coming.
Exactly,
It looks like a snake. Yeah.
exactly. It is used for cancer cures, and it is a banned plant. It comes under the Forest Act, but the people use it. They are extracting it. Females, women folk from upper reaches of Kullu Valley, they go into mountains during the
Right.
seasons. I think the season is from June to August or September. Although it is illegal, but they do it. Sometimes female fall off from the high mountain ridges. You can ask. I think Gopalji is in the uh,
Ignore.
forum. Dr. Negi is in the forum, but they're not responding. It's so widely available, and people are doing it.
You know, there's also a
And then
place near Malana called Magic Mountain. Now, I think maybe it's magical because of marijuana or because of the herbs, one of them. I've always wondered,
I
why is
think
it
Dr. Sonali,
Magic Mountain?
we should leave the marijuana out of it. We should leave
Just
marijuana.
to
It's
add to
a
what
different topic, I think.
Shamsherji just said, the milk thistle, it is a highly, while it is used for its medicinal purpose, it is also highly toxic. So it is very important to use it as per
Uh,
prescribed dosage and not just pick it up. It's a
Yeah,
very toxic plant.
marijuana
exactly,
is
Dr.
for
Sonali,
medicinal
exactly.
purposes as well, and it's a part of the culture. And of course,
Yeah.
anything that is misused is not good. And I would like to add, what was I going to add? I've forgotten. But anyway, yeah, what I was going to say that, I think Manan, with your knowledge, I think we should have a workshop relating to medicinal plants in the Himalayas. I think you should come. You should come and we should talk about that. Let's do a workshop on this.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I will be glad
sounds
to
good.
help you all.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
definitely, sir.
And I think we have a raised hand, Dr. Vibha Joshi. And this is wonderful because, it's 9:30 p.m. and we are still going on. This is so engaging. And of course, those of you who wish to leave and have to have dinner, please do that. But we are here for a little bit more. You can go on. And then we'll have Dr. Gopal Negi after that.
I think most of the points have been discussed by Shamsherji already. But yeah, I sort of wanted to know one thing. That did you find a difference as to when your the people say that this particular plant works? Is that a plant growing at a certain place and to be picked at a certain time? Because it's the potency of the compound. Now, you being a biochemist, you would probably have extracted and seen that the compound is present more at a certain time of the year than at other times.
Uh,
You know, the
well, ma'am,
potent compound.
yes, ma'am. So actually, ma'am, personally, I have not done such experiments, but it is true that the environment plays a very important role when it comes to the chemical composition of various plants. So as Shamsherji had said that juniper growing at a particular altitude, it has a more distinctive aroma as compared to a juniper growing at a lower altitude. So the local environment in which a particular plant is growing, it adds on to its chemical compositions. So for instance, when I was talking about the Katuki plant, the rough and the challenging terrains of the Himalayas added, because in order to survive, that plant developed or started producing certain compounds so that it could adapt to that environment. And in that process, certain medicinally important chemicals were being produced by that plant. So yes, the environment from where a plant grows plays a very important role, and it is always better to extract those components from a locally growing environment rather than uprooting a plant and allowing it to grow elsewhere. So it's not that if you uproot a plant and grow it in a lab that the chemical compounds may not would not be there, but it's just that the chemical balance or the potency or the concentration of those compounds would vary. It may or may not for some plants, but for some it can vary.
Can I just quickly ask, since I missed your talk, I do not know if you
Sure.
talked about Kingdom Ward, who actually did a lot of survey of all these botanical plants. He has given names to so many rhododendron species, and the blue poppy was also discovered by him accordingly. Local people always know about the plant, but
Uh-huh.
scientists go there and rediscover them and give them Latin names. So,
Okay.
but I was just amazed that he was the one who also gave name to Shiroi lily, after which there's a Shiroi lily festival in Manipur.
Uh-huh.
And that lily,
Okay.
they've tried to grow it outside that place, and it just does not grow. So it grows only in those hills, in northeastern hills. It has failed to propagate outside.
Okay.
But also, I wanted to ask you now, what kind of regulations are there now? Because in UK, so many plants which have become garden plants were actually
Mhm.
their seeds were brought by Kingdom Ward. So Pirunilla, which is used by everyone, even in USA, is actually
Mhm.
has the origin on Sikkim hills. So what are the regulations now? Any international regulations about
Well, ma'am, I'm not aware
export
specifically,
of these herbal plants?
but there are certain legal
Maybe
restrictions
even
when it comes to international location or transportation of plants. So we do need to take specific permissions for at least for certain plants before taking them outside the country. As far as local distribution is concerned, uh, I don't think anyone follows any rules or regulations. They simply just uproot it and take it.
That's
But
all.
I'm quite sure there must be certain local regulations, but I don't think anyone follows them.
Now, also, I noticed that in Nagaland, so many plants and herbal remedies that are used. Then I was told by my friends that these are also used in Ayurveda, but we have been using these for like ages. So it's very interesting, because Ayurveda, I mean, what I understand is a lot of folk remedies have entered into Ayurveda and have become a kind of, of that level. Um, but at the same time, this kind of I have worked in Madhya Pradesh with a community called the Saharia, and they had a lot of herbal knowledge. But at the same time, they were also collecting a lot of herbs from the forest for dabar. You know, certain roots, certain things, and you
Mhm.
kind of wonder that as soon as you have the commercial aspect come in. Now, what happens? Is there kind of over extraction, as some Shamsher ji was also saying, that over extraction at the local level by the local people, but also by those who are making commercial medicine. And whether when you do biochemical analysis, would you think that if you were able to manufacture those compounds like we do for quinine and so many other medicines, whether that would help in retaining the biodiversity and not sort of deplete
Uh,
all these plants from their natural
uh, well,
habitat?
ma'am, to answer your question, with companies like Dabur or other coming in the picture and commercialization coming in, yes, it does threaten the uh, growth of that plant because of excessive or over cultivation. When it comes to, so as a biochemist, what we look at is whether those compounds, if they are extracted or if they're consumed in its natural preparation, how potent they are, and if they are prepared commercially, whether they retain their potency or not. And that we work hand in hand with several pharmacists. So we do. So yes. So when we look into those aspects, we just consider the efficacy. We don't look much into the ecosystem or the growing of that plant. But yes, over cultivation does largely affect the survivability and the ecosystem, and that does need to be regulated.
Okay, we have two more questions. Um, Dr. Gopal Negi, your question, and then we'll have Shamsher Thakur.
Good evening to everybody. I'm very sorry, I'm not a doctor, I'm an engineer.
Oh, I
So
think
I'm the odd man out.
Shamsherji referred to you as doctor, so I thought he knows you. So I, okay.
So I think I'm the odd man out, not a doctor. I'm from the higher part of Kinnaur, which is desert. I think most of you may be knowing it. And there we have a very serious problem of vegetation. Like there is very small rainfall in that region. The growing season is very short, maybe around 4 to 5 months. And there's a lot of cattle load on the jungle or on the land. Because of that, hardly anything grows. So I have been putting my efforts to green that area, a small patch, maybe around 3,000 square meters of patch since last 5 to 6 years. And just in excitement, I started growing pine nuts and deodar trees. And it is so difficult to make a plant survive there. In 1 year, I have a growth of around 1 inch or 1.5 inch. But still, I'm putting my efforts to make them grow. And this is, I think, the fourth year now. Out of 1,100 trees, now around 450 trees are surviving. So there's a great hope. So after that, now I'm thinking to take a bigger region where I can bring back the biodiversity of that place, because most of the shrubs they have I think either they have got extinct or they are rarely seen there. And by attending this webinar and meeting you people, I think there's a great hope regenerate or revive that the biodiversity of that area. And I invite all of you to join me because since from next year May, I shall be taking up the job of reviving the biodiversity of that area. That's all. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. And we would love to help you or facilitate any which way. And of course, I've been to Kinnaur many times. And, you know, that it's such a important thing that you're doing. And whatever help you need from the Institute, we will kind of facilitate your dream of reviving the biodiversity there.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Yeah.
Sonali.
And thank you so much for coming on today and
Yeah,
being
it
a
was.
part of
Yeah,
this.
it was. Yeah, Dr. Manan's
Yes, sir.
so beautiful and so simple to understand. It was really very
Thank you,
interesting.
sir.
And Manan, you remember you said something about the nettles where the larvae of, I think, certain butterflies, right? They are on stinging nettle leaves. They feed upon the leaves. Some larvae.
I think somebody else had mentioned that. It was not me, but yes, some species do live or use nettles for their food.
Yeah. And I have, because on my way to Malana, I chanced upon a plant and I saw these hundreds of caterpillar like things, centipede kind of things
Okay.
on those leaves. And they were not only on the leaves, they were actually, after every millisecond, they were dancing, they were like vibrating. And I have that
Okay.
video and I'm going to post it on WhatsApp after the talk for all of you to see how they
Sure,
are on
sure.
the stinging nettle. So it's very fascinating to me, and that you mentioned it. So kind of it's clear that they feed on that. Yeah, and
Sonali, the question that Dr. Vibha had asked me regarding the over culturing of plants and whether it has uh, how commercialization affects. I think I have a friend of mine who is a pharmacist, a pharmacognostic, who is into pharmacognosy. Perhaps she'll able to give a more clearer idea than me.
is
So
she
perhaps
here?
if yeah, she's here. Her name is Roshali.
Okay,
She'll
Vishal.
able to give a more accurate answer than me, as she is into the field and more into working with medicinal plants than I am.
Vishali, please take over the mic and
Yeah.
let us hear from you.
Hi.
Hi.
No, I was listening, and this is quite an extensive discussion also post the session. So, few things that you all mentioned, over cultivation or anything, ecologically also is difficult, like you said, one single. But uh, when we cultivate plants or when we are talking of medicines, there are certain medicines in terms of ethnomedicine also we talk from cultivated from the wild. Like a latest example that we have is now asafoetida being cultivated in India. Though all of India uses asafoetida, we don't really cultivate it. We still get it from Persia, Iran, and all those places.
And just
And
to
we're trying to
tell
acclimatize
everybody,
it.
sorry, just to tell everybody, asphoetada is hing.
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 Yeah, sorry. No, and we are cultivating it now in Himachal. So we are trying to acclimatize it, get it to a potency which we can use as well. So we understand drugs in terms of terroir, like you have a certain place where it grows amazingly or it works amazingly. Like if you have apples, your apples from Kashmir and apples from this thing, maybe the species may be the same, but you will have different flavors. And a lot of things depend on seasons as well. Phytochemistry changes every season. Rather, plants like digitalis, etc., if I collect them in the morning, I have the highest content, and by night it will go away of the glycosides, etc. So it's not just season, time, etc. Age of the plant and all those are also important. So all of these considerations are to be done. And coming to the second aspect of a dabber using drugs and it's exploiting, because consumers here are eating them or consuming them without any understanding per se. They're OTC products. But like I said in the chat box, these are drugs that need to be collected on the whole. Ayurveda, homeopathy, or Siddha, Unani, any of these medicines talk about using them. They have a certain process or a procedure that needs to be followed. And a lot of clinical data also supports the use of using them as such for better activity and lower toxicity. And when we isolate certain compounds, then it becomes completely different. And then biotechnology comes in, or pure chemistry comes in to synthesize them. But then it goes to pharmaceutical, completely an allopathic drug, which will be there in a regular pharmacopoeia for standardization, etc. So then we lose a lot of, in terms of industry, we lose a lot of profit as well.
I think you've
So
answered the question that I had earlier asked, Manan, in terms of the raw form and the process involved
yeah,
versus the pharmacology part.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because I have personally worked on Silybum marianum, that's your milk thistle that you all talked about. I've done what you say, hepatoprotective properties, and it works. It, for that matter, that's the only drug available as a positive control for liver protection, and the rest are all compared to that as a standard. So it's but obvious that it's going to be overexploited.
Thank you so much, Vrushali, for
Thank you.
commenting on that. And I think this is your first lecture. So
Yes,
yeah, so we would love to have you continue to have you as a part of
yes,
things
definitely.
non-botanical as well. So yeah, yeah. And I do want to add that I've just recently got some funding from a very old school friend of mine who wants. He heard that I wanted to build a lab, geoarchaeological and an ethnobotanical lab. So
Wow.
he's funding for the lab. So very soon, in the month of November, end of November, we'll have the lab set up. And once I'm there, I'll send photos. So the wheel is moving slowly but surely with the help of everyone. And whoever wants to do research, they're welcome to come and take help of the facilities that we will be offering in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to make another announcement. So I've made this announcement. Then we have this workshop, which is happening in December. It's on Hindu and Buddhist iconography and motifs. It'll be a week-long workshop, and I will post details shortly. And then there is this podcast where one of our regular attendees, Otis, heads. He's stationed in Brazil, and he has this um, um, podcast, and I'll just tell you the name of it. It's called Archeo Cafe. So he interviewed me a few weeks back, and he has it all on air now. So I will post it for those of you who want to know what the institute is all about and the journey. I'm sure many of you have already heard it from the horse's mouth, but if you want to know more and you want to hear it, I will send a link on the page and on the group. And next week it is me. I will be talking on my research on cultural transmission. This month is about artifacts, people, and the relationship of things, places, people, and things. So I'll be talking about my research on cultural transmission in Egypt and in India. So I hope some of you join in the process. And Manan, if you could leave us with words of wisdom. We always have that tradition, as you know. So
Yes.
words of wisdom for this very wonderful talk that you gave.
I don't know if they're words of wisdom per se, but I would just like to tell everyone out here that whenever and wherever you travel, there are many such interesting and intriguing things that you would come across. So please document them. Documentation will help these things live on and be passed on to the next coming generation. Many things, if they are left undocumented, they just pass on and nobody else would know about it. It's important that people know about what things are there in nature and they need to be protected and conserved. So please document it in any form, either photographs or writings or narratives or any way. Kindly do that whenever you're traveling. That's all.
And thank you again,
Yeah.
Manan. We hope to hear from you for more enlightening talks in the future, and that you continue to be a part of this forum. And of course, now I'm going to bother you with a book. Okay.
Sure,
So
definitely.
and
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity.
yeah, and we are sure to do some workshops with Manan in the future. And all of those who have joined us today, do follow our Facebook page. And if you want to leave the broadcast group or join the broadcast group, please let me know, because I in no way want to intrude on your privacy. And if you do not want to hear from me anymore, that's fine too. You know, everybody, it's a free world. So I will be posting this talk on YouTube very soon, and I will be posting the link as well. And pertaining to the talks today, I will be sending your way some of the short 2 to 5 minute videos that I have made in the past for those of you who want to learn a little bit more visually about what we do. And thanks so much. It's almost 9:30, so that's really a long session, and I just loved it. Thank you so much, Manan. Take care, all of
Thank you.
you. Till next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.